for sure.
She is a devotee.
She comes to class every morning.
Every morning, every class I'm in, she comes to. Good morning, everyone. I have to say, this is my third or fourth time giving class, and I thought that I would eventually be less nervous, but I'm not any less nervous. The first time it was just presenting, and I thought, oh, these are my friends. I'm in class every morning. I see them. And then I realized it was recorded and other people would see. And now I realize that right now my voice is actually in the temple, and that the pujaris might be listening and Vasudev might be listening to my abysmal Sanskrit. So it ratchets it up. So I will begin as I always do, as Adi has taught us to first, like, please pray for me. Please pray for me, that I may say only what comes from Shastra and not my own foolish concoctions out of my very, very tiny brains, and that this offering may please my Guru and please Lord Krishna. Please pray for me. I ask in advance your blessings, because you are all more advanced than me. And please forgive me my mistakes, especially in Sanskrit pronunciation. And so let us begin. Hail the Lord, beloved Madhava of Radha, who wandered in the groves Vrindavan, sweetheart of the cowherds. He who lifted Govardhan hill. Hail, son of Mother Yashoda, he delighter of the people of Vraj, wanderer of the banks of the Jamuna and the forests. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari, Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabi Hari. Gopi Janavana Kirivana Jari, Gopi Janavana Kirivana Jari, Gopi Janavana Kirivana Jari, Gopi Janavana Kirivana Jari. Yashoda Nandana Braja Jana Ranjana, 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 Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari, Yamuna Tira Janachari, Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Right, hey,
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. I'll go ahead and share my screen. Reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam. Canto 10, chapter 2, verse 21. Kim tasmin kalaniyamasyume yaratra tantro navihanti vikramam striya swasho guru matya yaduyam yasha shriyamanta nukalamayu. Translation and purport by His Most Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Jaya. Okay. Kamsa thought, what is my duty now? The Supreme Lord, who knows his purpose, will not give up his prowess. Devaki is a woman. She is my sister. And moreover, she is now pregnant. If I kill her, my reputation, opulence, and duration of life will certainly be vanquished. Purport. According to Vedic principles, a woman, a Brahmana, an old man, a child, and a cow should never be killed. It appears that Kamsa, although a great enemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was aware of the Vedic culture and conscious of the fact that the soul transmigrates from one body to another, and that one suffers in the next life according to the karmas of this life. Therefore, he was afraid of killing Devaki, since she was a woman, she was his sister, and she was pregnant. A Kshatriya becomes famous by performing heroic acts. But what would be heroic about killing a woman who, while confined in his custody, was under his shelter? Therefore, he did not want to act drastically by killing Devaki. Kamsa's enemy was within Devaki's womb. But killing an enemy in such a nescient state would not be an exhibition of prowess. According to Kshatriya rules, an enemy should be fought face to face with proper weapons. Then, if the enemy is killed, the victor becomes famous. Kamsa very conscientiously deliberated upon these facts and therefore refrained from killing Devaki, although he was completely confident that his enemy had already appeared within her womb. Om again to Miranda Chatjananjanan Shalakaya Takshurin Tanmina Tasmi Shri Gudade Namaha. Vancha Kopa to Rubicha Kripa Sindue Bacha Patita Nam Bhavanavyo Vaishnave No Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Jagadadha Shri Vasari Gola Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. We'll just read the verse one more time. Kamsa thought, what is my duty now? The Supreme Lord, who knows his purpose, will not give up his prowess. Devaki is a woman. She is my sister, and moreover, she is now pregnant. If I kill her, my reputation, opulence, and duration of life will certainly be vanquished. It's so interesting and such a gift that there is always so much to speak about. But I have to say, when I read this verse, I thought of what I always thought about Kamsa. I think, what a waste. What a waste of potential. We know what Kamsa is. He's demonic. We will see, a murderer. Not just a murderer, but a murderer of children, an imprisoner of his own father, of his sister / cousin, right? But what he could have been, I think we see a bit of in this verse. And so what I'd like to share with you are my thoughts on what I call the wasted potential of Kamsa. And as my Guru Dev always said, before we shake our finger at others, let us first turn the light on ourselves. Where is our own wasted potential? And hopefully at the end, when we come to discussion, hopefully you can see, how can we not become a Kamsa? How can we not waste the potential that's been given to us? So the first, and there are 4 really distinct points that I found. And the last one I'll present, I think, is probably maybe the more obvious. So I'm sort of building to it in a way. But the first thought I had was, what a waste of a birth. What a waste of a birth in this noble family. Krishna tells Arjuna what happens, if you don't finish your mission in this life. You'll get this great, nice birth. Well, we know that Kamsa has a backstory, of course, but look at where he was born. His father is this righteous king, Ugrasena. So he has a good example. And then he is born this most noble of things. He is born a Kshatriya, a warrior, a leader, a defender of the people. And how wonderful is Krishna that he tells us in the Bhagavad Gita, the 18th chapter, here I have it on my notes here. He tells us what a Kshatriya should be, the qualities of Kshatriya. My first class that I gave, I talked about this, so it's funny, it's coming around again. Heroism, power, determination, resourcefulness, courage in battle, generosity, and leadership are the natural qualities for the Kshatriya. This is who he should be, who he has the potential to be. And why? To protect. I always think of the Kshatriyas, like I feel like the modern day Kshatriyas are firefighters, isn't it? All of us are running out of the building, screaming for our lives. And a Kshatriya is running in to defend. A Kshatriya is the example of that, I believe it's Edwin Burke, who said that wonderful, wonderful line. All that is needed for evil to triumph is for good men to do nothing. A Kshatriya steps up with those qualities. And then Srila Prabhupada in the Prabhupada, he also tells us like what a Kshatriya should be. He says, a Kshatriya becomes famous by performing heroic acts. But what would be heroic about killing a woman who, while confined in his custody, was under his shelter? Nothing too heroic about that. What a waste of what Kamsa could have been. And then Prabhupada also says, according to Kshatriya rules, an enemy should be fought face to face and with proper weapons. An innocent child, not even fully formed, has no weapons to fight against this demonic personality. So what a waste of this potential of who Kamsa could have been to been this righteous defender. And who was he supposed to defend? Well, the purport tells us that, but also there's a beautiful verse, 185, that I'll pull up and share from the Bhagavatam that unpacks very, very nicely who it is that is supposed to be defended. And it's so interesting that this comes in talking about the pastime of course, Draupadi. And in Draupadi's defense, she looks to her husbands, they cannot defend her. But who does? Krishna does. In the most creative, amazing way of manifesting himself. I mean, he could have done anything. Thunderbolts and this and that, right? Who was he send? Send fabric, like my beautiful friend Isabel gave me this piece of fabric last night to save. So let's look at that verse. The clever Duryodhana and his party cunningly usurped the kingdom of Yudhishthira, who had no enemy. I love that. Yudhishthira had no enemy. That's another point for another day, but he had no enemy because he took no offense. By the grace of the Lord, the recovery was executed, and the unscrupulous kings who joined Duryodhana were killed by him. Others also died, their duration of life having decreased for the rough handling of the hair of Queen Draupadi. Anyone ever notice how much hair pulling is in these stories? There's like, pull about the hair, pull about the hair. Makes me always glad I have really short hair when I read this stuff. Can't get a hold of me. But in the purport, here we talk about the people that are supposed to be defended. In the glorious days, or before the advent of the age of Kali, the Brahmanas, the cows, the women, the children, and the old men were properly given protection. The protection of the Brahmanas maintains the institution of Varna and Ashram, the most scientific culture for attainment of spiritual life. And who gives us this system? Krishna. The protection of cows maintains the most miraculous form of food, i.e. milk, for maintaining the finer tissues of the brain for understanding higher aims of life. The brain not for, let me make a new smartphone generation 695, right? The higher aims of life, understanding who and what we really are, which is the soul that is meant to be in communication and relationship with our divine best friend. The protection of women maintains the chastity of society by which we can get a good generation for peace, tranquility, and progress of life, right? We can think here of Draupadi. We all know the picture. I took a picture down. I forgot to upload it, of the picture at the back of the Bhakti Center temple. Draupadi with her arms extended. She is seeking protection from Krishna, and Krishna coming and whipping that sari all around, making it impossible that this her defense is coming in soft, beautiful fabric. How beautiful. And then here's one that I really, and Andrea, who works with children, I know really feels the protection of children gives the human core of life its best chance to prepare the way of liberty from material bondage. Such protection of children begins from the very day of begetting a child by the purificatory, I always have trouble with this word, process of Garahana Samskara, the beginning of pure life. It's really sweet that on Saturday, when I was in the temple, Vasudev was preparing a samskara for a pregnant woman that was coming in. And I got to see him setting up all these things. And it's so beautiful, but this protection of children. And as someone, I spend more of my time with children than I do adults. I perform in hospitals for children, as some of you know, and I see them not being protected. I see them not being protected in so many ways. And, there's that song from the 80s, I believe the children are our future, teach them well and let them lead the way. That whoever wrote that song, that is true. I see it. And then finally, the protection of the old men gives them a chance to prepare themselves for better life after death, right? The protection of the old men. I think about my father's final years when he was no longer working, and he devoted himself to going to church and being at the shelter, right? And the fact that he had family and a community that protected him. Such a beautiful thing to protect our elders. Our society kicks them to the curb, right? And we're missing out on so much wisdom. I was talking to my community group last night. We were saying, oh, aren't we sad that we cannot meet Prabhupada? But yes, but we have people who have met Prabhupada. Aren't I lucky that I have a Gurudev that as a young man walked with Prabhupada, right? And so let's value. But these are the people that should be protected. And Kamsa's blowing it. He has the opportunity to do it. And instead he's turning into a murderous, baby killing maniac. And so there are so many kings in the Bhagavatam who model the right way. So there's one in particular that I would like to unpack for just another moment, but let's hear throw some in the chat. Let's name some kings, some sattras who did do the right way, who did live up to their potential. There's so many. Let's hear some from the crowd. Here I go on. Lord Ram, yes, Lord Ram, of course. Lord Ram, yeah, right? Who to like that moment, especially if you read Krishna Dharma's version of the Ramayana, Lord Ram, tears are flowing down his cheeks as he says, I'm going to be the leader. I'm going to be the leader, not my personal motivation. Lord Ram lives that for me. I'm going to give her up. I will give up my most beloved for my people. Yes. And I think of King Sibi, right? I think of King Ranti Dev as well, but King Sibi, whose story is just so beautiful. King Sibi was known to be this protector. And he would say, any living being in my kingdom, I offer them my shelter. And one day, this pigeon, or sometimes it's written a dove, comes flapping in. And so King Sibi, You say that anyone is due your protection. There's a hawk that wants to kill me, wants to eat me. Please, King Sibi, give me your protection. And of course, King Sibi says, yes, of course. You're a living being in my kingdom. I give you my full shelter. But no sooner does he say that, but here comes the hawk flying down and says, King Sibi, you say that you offer all in your kingdom, your protection, but you give shelter to that pigeon. You don't want me to eat that pigeon, but pigeons are what I eat. Am I not under your protection? If you do not let me eat this pigeon, I will starve. And so King Sibi thought about this. He was true to his word. He didn't want to offer protection to all. So what he did was he called for a scale, and he put the pigeon on one end of the scale, one of those old-fashioned tilty scales. And he said, hawk, I will give you pieces of my flesh that are equal in weight to that pigeon for you to eat. And that way I will be protecting the pigeon and you. And so he cuts off one piece and puts it in the scale. And the scale is not even. And he cuts off another and another and another and another and another. And the scale will not become equal. And finally, when there was barely any King Sibi left, the hawk and the dove show their true forms. The hawk was Indra, god of the heavens. And the pigeon was Agni, god of fire. And they said, King Sibi, we came to see if you really meant it, that all were underneath your protection. All were underneath your protection. And so you proved yourself right. And so that's what Kamsa could have been. A protector, right? And instead, he turned away. So that's one way that I really do think about, wow, missed opportunity. But again, and I'll ask us to think about this at the end. When do I miss that opportunity? I'll admit it, I miss it on the regular. The second point that I thought about is Kamsa's absorption. Don't we hear stories that Kamsa was so obsessed with Krishna? I've heard in classes that he almost couldn't sleep, that all night long, it's like Krishna, 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 Krishna. He's mumbling, not the way that I sometimes mumble when I'm doing my rounds, not that distracted mumble, but the mumble. I don't know if anybody loves it, like right after Mangal Arati in the temple and everybody sits down and everyone is chanting and it's dark and it reminds me of the sounds of bees. The way that they say that when Krishna enters the forest, yeah, the bees are buzzing around, the bees that are the nectar seekers, not like the flies that seek the you-know-what, but the nectar seeking the honey, and they're buzzing around Krishna. And that's what I feel like in the temple. Like it's that kind of that absorption buzzing. But Kamsa, he showed he had the ability to absorb his mind, but he absorbed it on the wrong thing. He absorbed it and kill. His mind was so absorbed. His mind, I was thinking of, let me grab it here. I was thinking it's such a missed endeavor with what he was able to absorb his mind on. It was not the chanting that Lord Chaitanya tells us about the Shashastaka. My dear Lord, when will my eyes be beautified by filling with tears that constantly glide down as I chant your holy name? When will my voice falter and all the hairs of my body stand erect in transcendental happiness as I chant your holy name? With that level of absorption, Kamsa could have done how many rounds a day? He had the ability. He's not a squirrel line like me that, in case you don't know, like the reason my camera isn't on a lot when I'm in this class is because I teach yoga most mornings at 8 a.m. So I'm doing my asana practice and I need to move my body to here. I am so freaking hyper, like doing this actually makes it easier. So that's why you don't see me, because I'm often bent and twisted like a pretzel, but I need that actually to hear. But Kamsa seems like he's got it. He knows how to absorb, but what a waste that he does not absorb his mind in the right way. And again, before we wiggle our fingers and go, bad Kamsa, let us turn our fingers on ourselves and think, when am I not absorbed in the right way? So that's the second thing I thought about the waste. The third way I thought is his attachment. Kamsa is so attached, and he shows it to us in his verse because he's contemplating killing a pregnant woman. And what does he think about? If I kill her, it says in the verse, my reputation, opulence, and duration of life will certainly be vanquished. Not, oh, I'm killing a pregnant woman who's my sister cousin. No, it's like, what am I losing? What have I got to lose, right? What a waste of an attachment. Our teachings say we're going to be attached to something. We have the opportunity. We have the opportunity to be attached to our very dearest friend, our bestest friend. But instead, we turn away to be attached to things like, let me read it again, reputation, opulence, duration of life, right? Things that are so very temporary. And so when I read this, I don't know if anybody else also had the feeling, it made me think of someone who is asking for the exact opposite. There are many examples, but the one that I thought is the exact opposite of this. She goes, I don't want reputation. I don't want wealth. Anybody guess who I'm thinking of? Very, very, very often quoted, very, very famous.
Lord Chaitanya.
Lord Chaitanya, yes, Lord Chaitanya. And there's also another example I'm thinking about. Yes, Queen Kunti. Yes, both of those examples. I'm thinking both of those. Yes, both of those examples. Right. Lord Chaitanya says it again, the Shashastakam. But let's look at the verse from Queen Kunti. My Lord, your lordship can be easily approached, but only by those who are materially exhausted. Kamsa don't want to be materially exhausted. He's like, let me take a material Red Bull and get it cranked up. One who is on the path of material progress, trying to improve himself with respectable parentage, great opulence, high education, and bodily beauty, cannot approach you with sincere feeling. She is trying to cut those ties of attachment. And Kamsa is grabbing, like he grabbed on to Kunti's hair. He's grabbing on, right, to those attachments. So yet another way that he's not living up to his potential. So those are three. And let me go back over the three, and then I'll get to the fourth and final one. So the first one, what a waste of birth. What a waste of birth and position of who he could have been as a Kshatriya, a defender. What a waste of his seemingly wonderful ability to focus his mind. Krishna, 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 but that's not bhakti. That's not bhakti, because that mind was absorbed in ill intent. And then his attachment to all the wrong things. I always love that it said that the consciousness flows two ways, right? Either out or in. Kamsa's is flowing completely out to the temporary, to the temporary and to the material, when what we want to do is flow into the internal and the eternal. And so the last one, I think, in the way was the most obvious. The most obvious way that I feel like Kamsa is not living up to his potential is because he knew better. He knew better. I always remember that Oprah Winfrey once said that Maya Angelou, the poet who was her mentor, told her, once you know better, do better. Once you know better, do better. Kamsa knew, and the reason we know he knows is if we look at the verse, he asked the question, what is my duty now? He's asking a question. He's taking a time to pause and not just act. And it's interesting because I love looking at, I don't let me say that I don't love looking at the chapter of the Gita that's the qualities of demoniac and divine, because I don't love looking at it, because by the time I'm finished that chapter, I'm completely convinced that I'm a demon. I'm reading, check, check, oh, that's me, check, oh, that's me too, check, 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 check. So it's a shameful thing. It's a shameful thing. But look at what is said about the qualities of the demon. Those who are demoniac do not know what is to be done and what is not to be done. Neither cleanliness nor proper behavior nor truth is found in them. They don't know. But look at what he says. Kamsa thought, what is my duty now? The Supreme Lord who knows his purpose. And it's really interesting. The word that's for Krishna here is let me get it, Arta Tantra. Arta Tantra means the Supreme Personality who has come very specifically, right, to defend the devotees and kill the miscreants. Very specifically, comes and says, what is my duty? The Supreme Lord who knows his purpose will not give up his prowess. So Kamsa knows. He knows it, and his question there very much reminds me of King Dhritarashtra's question at the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita. I don't know if I'm the only one. Every time I read 1:1 of the Bhagavad Gita, when Dhritarashtra says, what are my sons and the sons of Pandu going to do now that they're dressed up for battle, of course I'm paraphrasing, and on the battlefield? I always want to go, duh, they're on the battlefield. Like, what do you think they're going to do? Play cricket? And we know that this question belies his fear. He knows that they're on this holy ground. He knows that even though the Pandavas are outnumbered and outgunned, that they're on the right. And mainly because guess what? Guess who they have on their side? Guess who's driving that chariot of Judas? Krishna. But Dhritarashtra's question really, to me, always speaks to, right? He knew better. He knew better. All those ways in which he enabled, right, his sons to do all these dreadful, horrible things all these years to their brother cousins, he knew. And I don't know if Vasudev is on a Pujari service this morning, but Vasudev did this wonderful painting of Dhritarashtra in his when he did this art exhibit in his little book, and it's this picture of Dhritarashtra's face. I don't know if anybody else has had it. And Dhritarashtra's face is wrinkled and his eyes are white, and it points to his blindness. And of course, we know he is physically blind, but his blindness to do the right thing. And when I read this question, I thought of that same question. Here are two people that know better. They know. Prabhupada says, and I love the way that Prabhupada says this in the purport, it appears that Kamsa, although a great enemy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, was aware of the Vedic culture and consciousness of the fact that the soul transmigrates from one body to another, and the one suffers in the next life according to the karmas of his life. He knew, and he turned away. And I think also in contrast of another demonic personality who knew, but did not turn away. Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj, when Lord Vamana came in, can we imagine how, the way they describe him, just so glowing and so beautiful. And Bali Maharaj, even when his guru says, no, don't give to this little glowing personality. This is a trick. This is the trick. I love that Brahmatirtha, when he was here, he taught us that Sukha Acharya, Bali Maharaj's guru, was known as Professor White. I don't know if anybody else remembers that. He said Professor White, right? Professor White was going, no, don't do that. But Bali Maharaj, even though a demon, did the right thing. He did the right thing. And we see here that this is the biggest letdown for me of Kamsa. And isn't it like Jai Jagannath says something, I'm gonna muck up the quote, but Jai Jagannath often says that the level of inquiry precedes the level of advancement. We tell a lot about a person, about the questions they ask, Our beautiful Gail is not on the call today, I'm seeing. And we know a lot about our Gail, right? We know a lot about our Gail and our Athena when they're in class. I always say, Gail, I don't even have the brain power to begin to think of the questions that you ask. I don't even know. But we know what we know about that. Even Jai Jagannath, I see him in classes with the Maharajas, and even though we know Jai Jagannath is so learned, he asks the question, right? And we see, I often joke that the Bhagavad Gita is nothing like an episode of Law and Order, that TV show that's dun dun, what happened? Dun dun, it happened over there. Dun dun, it's questions, it's questions, it's questions. So is the Bhagavatam. These constant questions, and so this question of Kamsa belies, he knows, and yet he doesn't do. And that's why when I picked up this verse, I thought, for all those reasons, what a waste of potential. What he could have been. And so before I open up to the floor for questions and comments, and I see them things in the chat box, forgive me, I am a squirrel mind, so I can't go up and down, otherwise I would totally lose train of thought, but I'll look down and see what was in the chat in a moment. But before we shake our fingers too harshly at Kamsa, right, let's look at ourselves. When are we not living up to our potential? And the question I like to throw out to this elevated assembly is, how can we live up to our potential? And I've thought deeply about this week. I was preparing for class. And of course, there's sort of the usual suspects. Yeah, there's my distracted chanting, my distracted hearing, but I really, there's, looking at Adi in the temple, I realized when I was in the temple the other day, I really fall down on understanding that I have the Lord's right in front of me. I have several friends that are not blessed to be able to go to a temple. Yeah, and I bow down. But then if there's somebody in that temple room, blah 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 blah, I start talking, oh, new haircut, oh, how's work? I miss the potential of having that opportunity to be in communion with Radha Muridhar and Gaurachandra. Again and again, I just did it the other day. I came in, I sat there for a second, then I'm like, hey girls, oh, you're making the garlands? That's pretty good. And I know for myself, that is now number one on my list. When I enter that room, that temple, I have to remember it is a temple, because I'm not living up to the potential that's been given to me, the opportunity that I've been given to me, that I can walk in there and be there. When I know so many people right now, they would kill to have the opportunity to just in an hour be there. I have this one friend, the where she lives, the closest thing for her is like 3 hours, and she has small children. She can't get there. I send her pictures, but she cannot get there. So that was the first way that I was thinking about myself. Then I'm not living up to my potential because it's right there in front of me. So thank you all so much for listening. I will I'll read what's in the chat and then open up for questions, comments, surely corrections, anything else. So let me just see. Yeah, we had a pigeon is a dove, a rock dove. Oh, really? Oh, cool. She's saying a pigeon is a dove. I thought as much. I thought the pigeon does these things. Seems like he could chant almost as much as Haridas Thakur if Kamsa had the right intention. Yeah, right? Because he always was. But yes, he could have been absorbed as much as Haridas Thakur. I agree. Hare Krishna, thank you, Randy. I can totally relate. I'm now in Bermuda and kick myself why I didn't take more association when it was so close before. Yeah. It's, we have to remember that, being in association and the Bhakti Center and Radha Govinda's is a gift to us. Radhika is saying, not living up to our potential is a powerful realization, but can also be overwhelming and make us morose and kick ourselves into gear to achieve more. How do we avoid the former? Yeah. Thank you, Radha, for asking the question. That's a really good question. I do think about that quote that Maya Angelou said, Now I know better, do better. And I keep reminding myself, I didn't know better. I didn't know better. And now I will try. And I try again, because I'm around children a lot. I see them like try and fail and try and fail. And like a meditation teacher once taught me, it's like when I bring my mind back from its distracted place, I don't get all like, yeah, sucker, I'm like, come back, because that's the way Krishna would talk to us. He wouldn't go, you suck. He would say, oh, little one, my dear friend, I've been waiting for you, and I'll sit here waiting. I just think there's that motel chain, Motel 6, and there's a fellow, he runs it, named Tom Bodette. And the commercials used to be, come on, I'll leave the light on for you. I think of Krishna like a mother waiting up all night for the teenager to come home, right? Very patiently. My mother never had to do that for me because I wasn't that exciting, but I watched her do it with my sister. She would sit there and she would wait for her to come home. And then it wasn't chastisement. It was like, where you been? Where have you been? And so to answer your question, Radhika, I tend to think like that. I think Krishna wouldn't want you to beat up on yourself. He wouldn't. He just wants you to see, okay, you see, now do better. And if you fall again, okay. Because remember, Krishna says, he'll keep preserving what we have and carrying what we lack again and again and again and again and again and again and again. Always, always, always. So if we can think about being as patient with ourselves as Krishna would be with us, I think that would be a really good way. I hope that was helpful. Hermangi, thank you. Yeah, versus kick us. Yeah. The one who doesn't fall doesn't stand up. Ooh, that's a cool one. Thank you, Nana Bihari. The one who doesn't fall doesn't stand up. Yeah. Andrea.
Hare Krishna, my dear Jamuna.
Good morning.
My big takeaway from what you shared, first off, obviously sharing your love and enthusiasm, not only for Krishna, but for his devotees. Thank you so much. But that visual of the devotees in the temple chanting japa together, and that they sound like bees, just looking for that nectar. It was just so beautiful. And I feel like now it really connects to what you were saying about appreciating when you can be together with the devotees, and appreciating even like these virtual sanghas are such a blessing. Because yes, we can't do that same thing because Zoom doesn't cooperate for us to chant all at the same time. But we're all here, and when we all participate and write in the chat and encourage each other and support each other, that's so beautiful. And to Radhika's question, what I was thinking was very similar to what you answered, is that whole idea of like, how would you talk to a child, about this? Like a loving, caring, compassionate person, when a child makes a mistake, doesn't say, you're awful, you're stupid, like, how can you're never going to achieve anything. And a lot of us got that in some way or another as we were growing up. So it's like, this is our opportunity, like you said, to talk to ourselves like Krishna would do, and say like, it's okay. You're doing your best. You're doing your best. And just to really remember that Krishna sees only the best that we do. He only sees the good, both mentally and like in outwardly. He only sees the good. And that doesn't mean that we don't do as much as we can, but just remember that if that's all we can do right now, that's okay. But it's baby steps, like babies don't come out of the womb running unless they're like Sukadev Swami, right? But but babies don't do that, and we're little babies when it comes to our spiritual progress. So just to be gentle with ourselves. But thank you so much, because that remembering the children, as you said, like I'm like, that's my seva, like just remembering the children. And sometimes I know this is like not Shastra, but if it helps, take a picture of yourself as a child
Mm,
and look at that picture, and right before you're going to kind of like say horrible things to yourself, look at that picture and be like, would you
mm,
say it to that child? And
mhm.
I don't know. That's it. Hare Krishna.
Nah, that is really, really beautiful. Yeah, it's the other day, so people, I perform as a clown in hospitals for children, and it's an inner city hospital. So back when I was saying about seeing children not protected, I see all sorts of challenging situations, but I saw a very young mother like really correcting a child in a very harsh manner, and it hurt my heart. And later, you know, the kids saw us. I was performing with my performance partner in the corner, and the child wandered over, and we were able to bring back the smile. But it's like that. I like Andrea's suggestion. If you think of like a 3 and a 4 year old, you know, they want, you know, I see this a lot in the hospital. If a kid is apprehensive, and if they see their parent apprehensive, they can't let go. If they see their parent smile, they're constantly checking in, and the parents, they're really being protective, right? They smile, and that you know, that fills the child with encouragement and hope in this most challenging situation. I'm sick, I'm not at home, what's happening, who these giant-sized people sticking things into me, you know, taking tests. They're even I always feel sorry for the doctors, because they're really trying to help the kids, but kids don't understand that. Like, why are you sticking this tube into my arm, right? And so, yeah, to look at them like that, because if we see ourselves, because that's where that child is, like the inner child. That child is always there. So I love that suggestion, Andrea. Thank you. Angela, you have your little Zoom hand up.
Yes, yes, I do. So I'm one of these moms away from a temple that has
Mm,
multiple children, and so having the ability to come to class every morning is lovely to see beautiful faces and hear beautiful voices like you, Mataji. Thank you for what you have to say. And there's a quote a little farther up that I put. I said it sounded like Radha was dancing out of your mouth. It's
oh,
such lovely to hear. One of your very many blessings in addition to the words you have to offer. So I work with children every day, mostly my own children and homeschooling them.
mm,
But so I'm not in the hospital, and sometimes I feel bad, like I rob them of this smile. I perhaps am a bit more critical than the two of you. With a small child of 3 or so, I'm very gentle. When we start to get to an older child, I pose them with this question. You know, they take a cookie. I go, "You are a thief." I state the fact, you know, which is a harsh thing to do. But then I follow this up, and this is the part that I think um, you're asking us to do. You know, I go, "You have the power to change this. What can
mm,
you do that's
mhm,
different?" And so, as much as it is that I take this smile away from them, I'm giving them a gift of them realizing that there's something more that they can do, that there's a potential, like you're saying, that they're not living up to. And if you're not a child's mother or auntie, you definitely shouldn't do this. When you're a clown in a hospital, we should be happy and joyful, you know, all the time, unless the child's doing something very, very severe, right?
mm,
And so I don't feel that you're saying that what I'm doing is bad. I want to be clear, but it's a slightly different relationship that we're looking at when we're in a caretaker versus an amusement perspective. And sometimes stepping out of that can be difficult, but it's important to do. We have to renounce our motherhood to look at a child devotee sometimes. And so it takes me to another faith home that I'm in. They have some principles that they look at, a lot of which I think we would agree with, like justice and equality and compassion for all living beings. Another one they have is the inherent worth and dignity of every human being. And I'd like to think about this. We talk about, say, Trump or Putin or, you know, um, different kings in history, and we sit there and we go, well, what is their inherent worth and dignity? And then I'm left kind of like you with this statement of, well, purely they're just not living up to this inherent worth and dignity. And so this is, like I said, like you ask us, what are we going to do? How are we going to meet that? And this brings me back to my original statement here. So I'm one of these moms that can't quite make it out to the temple, and I get to sit here in Sangha with the other devotees. So it's this action of doing, of being present to me, that's the answer.
Mm.
You go, oh, I need to stop and have darsham. I need to focus on the deities. This is a doing action. You're identifying a thing. So what are we doing?
Mm. Thank you,
Mm.
Angela. That's just really beautiful. It is, and I'd like to hear more about that. That's an excellent. What are we doing? Because it's sometimes the classes can be about don't do this and don't do that and don't do the other thing. Let's talk about what we can do to live up to our potential. I'd love to hear what Adi has to say. Bhima has his little Zoom hand up, so perhaps Bhima will talk, and then maybe you can hear from Adi. Bhima Prabhu, and your horses too.
Haribo, Jamuna Jaya. Nice to see the rising sun there smiling at me. I'm going to turn this around here because I'm walking up a little mountain that's down the street from me. And I do this as often as I can to be able to look out in long view over the land and get a little bit of sense of perspective. I just wanted to make a statement as you were stating about the fact that we're in the temple and how we have to pay attention. Prabhupada and Radhanath Maharaj and all the devotees, including yourself, mention how really important it is that we pay attention. We take so much for granted. We're really, I remember when I first joined, it was actually, let me turn this around. When I first joined, my chanting was almost athletic in nature. It was like training. And, as the years go on, you do your chanting or your sadhana, you take it for granted. You feel like, even without even knowing it, complacent. But, sadhu sangha, and I'm one of those people who cannot get to the temple because it's 2 hours away. But for the first time in 2 years, because of the COVID program, and also because the Boston Temple had a few cases, they stretched the closure of the temple down for almost 18 months to 2 years. Anyways, for the first time in 2 years, I was able to return, and I thought I was doing okay without actual person-to-person association with devotees. And for the first time in 2 years, I went last Sunday, and I saw everybody again. And I can't tell you just the paradigm, the sea change that occurred within, I guess, my chest about what the pain, the angst, the loneliness, the all those things that I just accounted for as the onslaughts of life, of how it all washed away in the association of the devotees, how that sort of the devotees was just surrounding and just saying hello to everybody and talking to everybody and seeing the deities once again three-dimensionally. And the scent was back. I grabbed a garland, had Mahaprasad. We take these things for granted. I took them for granted for so long, and then you don't miss your water till the well runs dry. So if anything taught me was that how precarious, even if you have strong sadhana or reading the books better than ever, or chanting very hard, if you're not hanging around the love of the devotees, the support of the devotees, then Maya creeps her way in, because we need love, and the quickest way to Krishna's love is to have to please and give pleasure and service to the devotees. So I just wanted to make mention that you had reminded me of how wonderful it was to be around the devotees in person, sadhu sangha in its reality. So thank you very much for reminding me of that.
Thank you,
Hare
Bhima.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have a quick happy birthday shout out today.
Ooh.
You know who I'm talking about. Adipurusha Prabhu, it's your birthday. So we wanted I wanted to express my profound gratitude for Adipurusha Prabhu, for his patience with me, for his example, for his steadiness, for his not taking an offense anytime I offend him. Adipurusha Prabhu, I love you dearly. Please continue blessing me with your association. Thank you very much for being in my life, for being who you are. We love you. We love you. Thank you very much. Happy birthday.
Oh, glory to Prabhupada. Mataji, fantastic class, just wonderful. Your joy and devotional service is extraordinary. You really Krishna is shining through you and your spiritual masters empowering you. And the subject matter about Kamsa having the potential to give shelter, and that whole subject of someone offering shelter and somebody receiving shelter. Children are so much a good example because they're innocent and they so much appreciate. But Vaisheshekha was saying, everyone is hunger for that. They're looking for someone who's the adult in the room because our senses and our mind is out of control, and we need that support and that guidance and that correction and that encouragement and that person there who loves us and who we trust. And it's so natural to hunger for that. And Krishna is so wonderful. He's the ultimate shelter that Krishna provides people like you to care for the children, people like Andrea showing love for the children. And it brings out the best in us when someone is in need of that care. Krishna gives you special, they call it a mantle. When you become a parent, there's a special empowerment where Krishna's prepared to work through you. And so we want to take shelter and we want to give shelter at both ends, and it's that's how our human life is experienced with these loving exchanges. The animals are so innocent, and you give them shelter, and they reciprocate with that, and they become grateful that they're being cared for. Arjuna is saying something. Oh. Anyway, glories to Srila Prabhupada, who's giving us shelter, and our spiritual master. Everyone has someone who, it says, when the disciple is ready, the guru appears in the life, right? Temple is about to open, the deity's curtain. Maybe somebody else can say just a little something. It looked like Bhima had his hand up.
Bhima,
Thank you, glories to Prabhupada. We love you guys. We're taking shelter of you.
Happiest of birthdays, Adi. Thank you, Ananda Bihari, for telling us this. We hope you're with us for many, 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 many more years, Adi. Thank you so much for what you teach us and your example and your humility. We love you so much. And I can't believe I had the honor of giving class today on your birthday. Ananda Bihari, I guess that, curtain's about to open. So thank you all for tolerating me. And
thank you. Thank you, Jamuna Jaya. Beautiful class. I think you energized us for the rest of the week, for the rest of the month. So until your next class, Jamuna Jaya, next month. Thank you very much. Happy birthday, Adipurusha Prabhu. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, for keeping your cameras on. Hemangi, Bhima Prabhu. Bhima Prabhu is like a king. He's walking around his kingdom, making sure every single squirrel is happy.
it's
Yeah.
true.
A poor king. A poor king.
Yeah. Poor king. Okay, yeah. Every time you think of this big politician, I don't want to name anybody, but we should say Andrea's mantra. Would you say this to this child? Think of them as children, right? Right. Have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
See you
Thank
tomorrow.
you.
Krishna.
All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Bye.